I think a lot of people generally just think AI bad. They don't necessarily understand it and they don't understand how it works in a classroom setting. So
Mhm.
they naturally go to the worst case scenario. And then you hear reports on TV or you read an article about something bad happening with AI. And so then they automatically think it's the worst. But if you look at that like the internet, so think about how all the ways that the internet can be used for good and for bad. Well, it's the same thing with AI. So people just go to that place.
Well, I think people are also hearing about how AI hallucinates. And one of the things we do not do yet, we do not just hand kids a chat GPT and say, here, go learn everything you need to know.
Right.
It's what are you feeding the LLMs that our kids are learning? And for us, it's US Common Core in K through 8. It's AP academic information for the high school level. And so we're using the AI in kind of this closed system
Mm-hmm.
where it's not doing stuff around hallucination and all that. I tell you, one of the things, Jay, I always say is do not hand your kid ChatGPT and say, let me know when you finished your high school experience.
Right.
In fact, I even go further than that. Do not give your kid a chat bot to do academics. In education, chatbots are cheat bots.
Welcome to the Future of Education podcast, hosted by Mackenzie Price. Mackenzie is the founder of a revolutionary new school model that's disrupting education through AI. Join us as we discuss the latest in education innovation.
Today, I'm going to respond directly to my critics. If you've ever read some of the comments that I get on my Future of Education social media, you would understand that I have quite a few haters. Of course, the overwhelming majority of people that comment just have honest, kind of valid questions or wanting to understand more about the model. But I also do get some that are a little bit like, yikes, we don't like what you're doing. And we're going to talk about both of those types of comments. So if you've ever been skeptical about this 2-hour learning time back model and the principles behind it, this episode is going to give you some very straight answers. Get ready for some myth busting, a few very spicy takes, and an inside look at the truth behind so many of the common objections that I hear daily. And joining me in the role as my biggest hater, it is my producer, Jay. Oh, wow, Jay. I love the hat.
I'm
the
ready.
Hater hat.
I'm
I didn't
ready.
even know there was such a thing as a hater hat. I always wonder who actually wants to wear one of those hats around just in normal life. They're like, this is what I want to convey to the world is that I'm a hater.
Well, actually, so
what an unhappy world that would be, right?
we bought
if that's
this,
like your life.
We bought this hat and made the little stickers ourselves.
Okay, you made it. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
so we made it just for you.
So if I ever lose you to something else, you might be onto something. Maybe there is a market for the hater hat.
I'm drinking the Haterade.
The Haterade. I love it. Okay,
I'm drinking the Haterade.
So Jay, you are intimately familiar with all these questions that I get on Future of Education, and you've, I think, got a pretty good list.
A great list.
I'm so excited to jump in. This is going to be fun. I even brought some moral support with me so that I can deal with my hater. My dog Hamilton said, I'll be here to support you, Mom.
He's your emotional support dog.
Exactly. So yes, bring it on. What's the first one?
All right. And, like you said, a lot of these are just valid questions. Some of them are truly haters. So, but it's, yeah. All right. Number one objection. AI is bad and we shouldn't support it. It has no place in the classroom.
Ooh, that is such a common thing that I hear. And I think this is absolutely true with anything new that comes out. Remember when the internet came out in like the late 90s and everyone's like, oh my gosh, this is going to be terrible. What are we going to do?
Computers as well.
Computers were like that. The telephone was like that. The calculator was like that. In fact, going way, way back, did you actually know the written word was like that? The ancient philosophers were like, we're going to lose the art of storytelling if we have the written word. And so here's the thing that's really incredible about artificial intelligence. And I think people realize this pretty quickly. AI is the tool that is finally going to enable education to deliver personalized learning that meets every student at exactly the level and the pace of knowledge that they need to be met at. It's also incredibly good at taking the assessment of where a student is and then developing the learning plans for what they're doing. And that's what our schools, what Alpha School currently does, is we use an AI tutor to be able to assess basically where a student is using standardized assessments and then create those lesson plans and then make sure that students are efficiently and effectively kind of learning the material. that's just the beginning of what AI is going to do. The other thing that's going to happen, and we're going to start seeing this basically in the next year, is we're also going to be able to leverage dynamic content to be able to take the interest that a student has. So for example, Jay, if you're trying to learn 5th grade math, and I know you love baseball and you're interested in the Astros, you're going to be able to combine that interest that you have of baseball on top of learning math. And we're not quite there yet, but it's starting to happen. And so I think people get nervous because everybody has the same experience with having really gotten an education, right? It's one of the most personal experiences that all of us can relate to. And so this is different, but I believe that education is this industry that is ripe for transformation.
Right.
And artificial intelligence is going to be the tool that does this. On top of that, I think the thing that's so important to remember is when people think AI in education, they think of a classroom of kids staring at the front of the classroom and a robot, Terminator, teacher, AI thing kind of going there. That's the exact opposite. What happens is instead, we're able to finally provide that one-to-one mastery-based tutoring experience for a kid and then free up our humans to go do what they are best to do, which is connect personally and emotionally and motivationally and socially with kids. And I will tell you just very much clearly what we're seeing real practical results, true results in our schools is that kids are learning twice as much and they're doing it in only a couple hours a day, which gives them back their most valuable resource, which is time to go do all the other cool stuff that we get to do the rest of the school day.
I think a lot of people generally just think AI bad. They don't necessarily understand it, and they don't understand how it works in a classroom setting. So they naturally go to the worst case scenario. And then you hear reports on TV or you read an article about something bad happening with AI. And so then they automatically think it's the worst. But if you look at that like the internet, so think about how all the ways that the internet can be used for good and for bad. Well, it's the same thing with AI. So people just go to that place.
Well, I think people are also hearing about how AI hallucinates. And one of the things we do not do yet, we do not just hand kids a ChatGPT and say, here, go learn everything you need to know.
Right.
It's what are you feeding the LLMs that our kids are learning? And for us, it's U.S. Common Core in K through 8. It's AP academic information for the high school level. And so we're using the AI in kind of this closed system where it's not doing stuff around hallucination and all of that. I tell you, one of the things, Jay, I always say is do not hand your kid ChatGPT and say, let me know when you finished your high school experience. In fact, I even go further than that. Do not give your kid a chat bot to do academics. In education, chat bots are cheat bots. And so our students don't use chat bots as part of their academic part of the day. In fact, if you ask one of our students, tell me about your AI tutor, they're not going to say, oh yeah, this little dashy avatar, comes up on my computer and tells me about math or history or whatever. They're going to say, I basically am able to be guided through the right level of academics for whatever subject, whatever app that I'm using. And, it makes sure that I'm learning well and then kind of adjusts lessons based on what I know or don't know.
Yeah, I think people don't understand it. Once they do, what I found online is when people go and say, watch more deep dive videos about your program and how it actually works, they come back pretty astonished and like fully on board. Just because they don't understand it.
Yeah. And I actually think the other thing that comes along with that is they'll say, well, you're not really using AI. What you're really doing is you're just using app-based learning that's been around forever. And it's like, yes, the mode for which kids are learning is through the apps that we built and then apps that have been out there and available to the rest of the public. It's the AI kind of working behind the scenes that's really making sure that the lessons are right for the students in terms of level and pace.
Right. So it's apps, learning apps that people may know, but the AI is what determines which apps and what level and what pace. So it kind of works in the background. Is that the best way to describe it?
And here's the fundamental thing is just like the invention of the microscope allowed us to make leaps and bounds of innovation in biology. I believe that artificial intelligence is the same tool that is going to allow us to finally incorporate all of the learning science principles, the science of how people learn best into our education system. And that's what results in kids learning 2, 5, 10 times faster. And I believe that's always a great thing.
And I agree. And that's a good point. Let's also just point out that the one teacher in front of the class with 20 to 30 students teaching that 6th grade math doesn't work. You know why? Because a lot of those kids are behind or ahead, and only a few of those kids are getting the material they need. So what's interesting about this AI is bad. I kind of want to go when I see those comments like, well, is the way that we're doing it now working? It's not for most kids.
That is absolutely true.
So it's kind of like,
well, you know what? I think you're right. We compare things to this utopian perfect
it doesn't
thing.
exist.
And you know what? Here's what would be great is if every kid had a human tutor who was a subject matter expert, who was totally connected to how to motivate a student, how to work with a student, had infinite patience. That would be amazing. But that's not what our current education system is. The bottom line is, less than a third of our students in this country are reading or doing math at grade level.
Right.
I mean, it is bad. And so trying to say, oh, we have this great system that's working and, putting AI in education is bad. I can tell you what we're seeing so far, and this is starting on a small scale, is it's working really well and it's getting better results than the traditional way.
Definitely. Okay. So now I'm readjusting my hater hat for hater number 2. This is too much screen time. You are ruining kids' eyesight. You are ruining their brains, turning them into mush. It's too much screen time. It's bad.
Let's start by acknowledging that there are different types of screen time and not all screen time is equal. Jay, would you believe this? I was a screen-free family when my kids were young. I actually agree with a lot of things around too much screen time is a bad thing. But here's the thing. There is a huge difference between doom scrolling TikTok, playing hours of video games, or watching cartoons all day, and getting a one-to-one personalized, mastery-based learning experience where we're keeping a kid in what we call the zone of proximal development, which means the lessons that the child is learning aren't too hard to where they kind of turn off and are like not engaged, or too easy where they're bored. We're keeping them in that right level, and they're moving at a pace where it's like as they learn and understand something, they go forward. If they're struggling, they get to review and take their time through this. That beats sitting in a classroom, a traditional classroom, staring at a teacher like this.
Right.
And the fact that I'm just looking at you like that is not more engaging than the kind of education system that we're getting. The other thing that I will say, in addition to the fact that not all screen time is equal, is that what we're seeing in our schools, our kids are spending about 2 hours a day doing their academics on a computer. And it is showing now that the average that a traditional school student spends on a screen during the school day is higher than what we're doing. Now, I think their types of screen time are kind of dumb. They're going and logging into Google Classroom, or they're looking at notes or reading a textbook, on the screen. But that is something that is, just different. So I think what happens is fundamentally at our schools, our kids are getting so much more time to interact with each other and with their teachers, we call them guides, than students in a traditional classroom are getting. And it's that delivery mechanism that is making the ability for them to have time to do that.
And also, I have to say, I've noticed the way that traditional schools use screens. What they tend to do is they take a worksheet that would normally be a piece of paper, they load it into a Chromebook, and then the kids just do all their worksheets on a Chromebook.
Yeah.
Or instead of reading from a history book, they just read it online. So in actuality, to go back to your point, traditional schools probably have more screen time than the schools that you've found to do, and it's the bad kind of screen time. It's dumb screens. It's not even using the smart screens, the way that you do with the AI tutor that is tailored at the level and pace. It's basically the 30 kids in front of the classroom, but now it's just all on screens. And so that's why I wish I could explain to a lot of the people, or they could hear you, explain how this screen time really works, because it's better. Okay, next hater. Teachers are the lifeblood of our society, and this is hurting teachers.
I totally agree that teachers are the lifeblood of our society when it comes to raising up kids in the school system. I disagree completely with the idea that this is ruining teachers.
How so?
I think the role of the teacher in the classroom is going to become so much better and so much more impactful as a result of AI than anything teachers have experienced before. And let me tell you why. Teachers did not get into their jobs to just create lesson plans and deliver lectures and grade science papers and homework
And deal with bureaucracy.
and parents who are upset about things. They got into this profession to make a difference in the lives of the young people that they're working with. And what we have done at our schools is we have not replaced teachers. We have transformed their role so that instead of doing all of those things, they're able to let artificial intelligence create that personalized learning experience for kids, and then spend all of their time on motivating and supporting and holding kids to high standards while giving them the support they need to go do big things. And here's what we find. We have tons of our guides that came from a traditional teaching background. And what they report is that they have so much more time and ability to focus on connecting with their student than they ever did in a traditional classroom. Teachers' jobs are so hard in the traditional system. That's part of the reason we're seeing teachers leave the field in droves. It's part of why the traditional teaching profession is struggling to find high quality people to go in. We've made it so hard for them to be successful in their jobs. And that's because the model of that teacher in front of a classroom, it's just such a broken system.
Right.
And so I think one of the things we're also going to see is teachers who want to continue working in schools are going to be able to find better opportunities. I think that we'll be able to figure out how to increase pay for these teachers. And
Well, you already do pay them.
well, we definitely do. We start at six figures because I think teachers should be paid well for what they do. And you know what we often say is, 10 years from now, who knows what's going to happen with software or AI or what tools. But here's what I do know, Jay. In 10 years, parents are still going to want to drop their kids off in a physical building with other kids and caring adults. So that role of an adult who cares about the kids in the classroom, that will never go away. It
Right.
should never go away.
Right.
I would never want to put my children or any children in a place where they don't have that adult connection. What I always say is that artificial intelligence is allowing us to increase human intelligence, and we're not going to replace a teacher, but the role of the teacher is going to change.
I've seen it in action. I've seen it in action at schools all over the country that you've started, and it works pretty beautifully because it allows the guide, the teacher, the guide, their role to be a cheerleader, a motivator, a connector, like a champion, as opposed to being so preoccupied with, we know the laundry list of why teachers are quitting. Sadly, they're all valid reasons. When you take away those things, it allows these teachers and guides to be really like what you said, why they got into the profession. And when you see that in action, it is really a cool thing. I see these kids who just look up to their guides, admire them, and then those guides inspire them. And it's not all perfect. I've seen kids cry. I've seen kids throw temper tantrums. That's what students do when things get hard. And I've seen the guides move in those times and really solve those issues and be there for support. So I've seen it on the ground, and it really does work well.
Yeah.
Now, putting my hater hat back on, adjusting it, next hater comment is, these schools don't seem to have very good socialization. They're bad at the social scene.
Well, there's a couple of different angles that question comes from. One is that when people hear that kids are learning on computers in the morning, when they're like, oh, they're doing AI learning in the morning, they think that means kids are not getting any socialization or interaction with anyone else. They picture kids sitting by themselves in front of a computer with no connection to other humans. That is so far from the truth.
Or they've seen them in the pods. They're, which some of
they
those
do. Actually, we have videos because we have these individualized learning pods where kids will go in and they'll put themselves in the pod. Now, here's what they don't understand is that there are kids who say, you know what? When I'm learning math, I can focus really well when I have this space. What we're really seeing there is kids are learning their style of how they focus and learn best. Fundamentally, our kids are spending such a short period of time each day doing this academic thing, getting that one-to-one kind of mastery tutoring
Yeah.
that is delivered via computer. It frees up the rest of the day for them to interact with each other, interact with their teachers, our guides, in so much more of a social way than kids in a traditional school. When you think about socialization in a traditional school, a lot of time is spent in class just being
It's no good.
quiet,
Yeah.
generally being quiet, being kind of bored, disengaged.
Or worse, it's in the lunchroom when you don't have any friends and you're scared, or they're making fun of your outfit, or they're making fun of you in the locker
Well,
room.
so
or-
that
I mean,
that goes to a second spot. There's another
crazy.
aspect of socialization, which is people think socialization is a really important part of school, and I agree with that. I think it's maybe even one of the most important things. But think about the way that socialization is done in traditional school. It's sort of just sink or swim, figure
Right.
it out. There's no teaching around that. And one of the things that we believe is that socialization and relationship building is a really important life skill that you can teach kids how to do well
I love that.
and how to be successful. So that's the
I love
other
it.
part of it is socialization. Now there's actually a third part.
But wait a minute.
Yeah.
The way that your schools teach socialization is really cool. And the viewer needs to know, like one example that I love is they teach them how to be interested in someone else, but also interesting.
Yes.
So it's like a lot of adults don't even understand
No,
that.
that's true. And we actually do a workshop that has simulations around the Mean Girls cafeteria. You know, think about the movie Mean Girls, walking in, trying to figure out, like, how are you going to get along with all these different kids? How do you go and make friends? How do you connect with someone that you don't know? And those are things that we are able to spend a lot of time helping kids develop the skills of how to be just well-adjusted, how to make friends, how to connect with others, how to ask questions, how to get to know someone. And we start that very early. We literally start that in kindergarten. Even things like learning how to play a game and be a good loser when you lose a game, right?
Right.
And have time during school where we're teaching kids all of these different skills.
I can say that the Alpha kids that I've seen and all the other schools, Texas Sports Academy, Next Gen, GT School, all of the models that teach this socialization that you're talking about, they're some of the most well-adjusted, thoughtful, socialized kids that I've ever seen. Like, this is a home run times 10. So this comment of no socialization or bad socialization always strikes me as weird. I guess it's because, like you said, they see the 2-hour learning or the time back learning part and they think, oh, that's what they do all day.
They just think kids are sitting by themselves on computers
Yeah.
and they go, that's no socialization. And that's not true.
Yeah, it's just such a home run the way that the schools do socialization.
You know, I was just at one of our Alpha schools in Scottsdale, Arizona, and it was really interesting because for our Limitless launch in the morning, that's the time when everybody comes together and they do some sort of launch that teaches some sort of growth mindset activity. Our guides were having the kids work on like a challenging team task, and then they were going in with the idea of, let's focus on how do you make sure that you can be uplifting to others and have a culture of belonging. And then after they did this task, they came back together and they shared within the group, like, here's why we think our team did a really good job around helping to uplift each other, because we took turns listening to the ideas that everyone has. I felt safe, like, to share my opinion. I felt a sense of belonging. And there was one team who said, we really struggled and I didn't feel like I was being respected or heard when I had an idea, and here's why. And then they're able to actually spend time kind of reviewing, almost like going back to game footage of like, well, you're right. We were all talking over each other. And when you talk over each other and someone doesn't feel like they get heard, that hurts their sense of belonging. And it kind of creates this culture of a lack of respect. And the fact that these kids are able to spend time thinking about that and then understanding, how do you build a culture where kids feel a sense of belonging, where they feel respected. There's so many things we do that jump into that world of socialization and creating a culture, because ultimately, I think we as parents, that's what we want. Are they good kids? Do they have character? You know,
Right.
do they know how to be a part of their community? Do they know how to be healthy in their socialization? It's an important thing.
That's awesome. Love that. Okay. All right. Now I got to put my hater hat adjusted again for my next one. Your schools are hurting our public schools. Fund the public schools and we won't need these types of schools.
Jay, this is one that I will say every once in a while I have to really resist the urge to be a keyboard warrior.
Right.
When people say just make your schools free and do this in the public setting. And it's like, first of all, I'm one person. I would love to make them free, but I don't have the ability to just go do that. And getting them into the public system is not just like I snap my finger
Right.
and in they go. I think there are so many things that go into that conversation around school choice, around funds being able to follow a family to whatever's going to be the right school for them. And so I would love for our public schools to get stronger and be better. I will tell you what's happened is they haven't been doing a good job. And that's why you're seeing a lot of people moving away from the public school
But
system,
that's your
going
fault.
into private models.
That's your school's fault. You are the reason why public schools are bad.
You know, I would love to say that we have had such a large dent in society that, that we have fundamentally changed that, but that is definitely not true. And I would think it'd be great to make this available publicly. I'm really doing a lot, and you kind of see this. I have a lot of meetings and connections with government officials, with people at the state, cities, to work on this, and hopefully we'll get there someday. But so far, we haven't gotten there.
And not to name any names, but I will just let your viewers know. So since I can name drop as your producer, not name drop, but brag as your producer, like the governors call you, the heads of the school districts from all the largest school districts, they call, they want to know because they see it works. They know it works. They get it. So this way is working, and they are trying to implement the methods that you and your team have done for the last 10 years,
That wraps up part 1 of this episode, but don't worry, there's a part 2 coming soon. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, now is the time to do it, so you can stay up to date on all our episodes. You can connect with Mackenzie on social media and be part of our daily conversation over on Instagram at futureof_education. For more info about the show and our guests, you can always visit futureofeducationpod.com. Lastly, if you're loving what you're learning, please leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll be back in your feed soon, but until then, remember, kids are limitless, and it's our job to unlock their potential.